goals for 2025 is to read down my physical TBR, but it's currently May and I'm really struggling. So I'm doing what I do best and giving myself a challenge. This is the start of my new series, TBR Tackle. I don't know if that is going to be the final name of this series, but that's what I'm calling it for now. Shout out to Riley Marie as she does a similar series and hers is called TBR Tackle, so I'll link her down below. But this is not a new concept. A lot of people do this on BookTube already. There's TBR Takedown, Read It or Unhaul It, and people make tons of reading vlogs about reading down their physical TBR. So it's time for me to jump on that bandwagon because I need to get reading my physical TBR. Throughout this series, I'm going to be giving myself little challenges to get me to read my physical TBR because that's how I read best. So I have a bunch of ideas that I am going to use throughout this series. In this vlog, I'm letting a random color generator decide what I read. For the first episode of TBR Tackle, I'm letting a color wheel decide what I read. This is a video idea I've had for a long time and I thought it fits perfectly here. This is actually a stat that I track in my reading spreadsheet every year to see what color I'm reading from the most, and blue is always the highest. I would like to change that, so hopefully this video will help me. I'm hoping to read at least 2 books in this video, so let's get started. I've got my iPad here. I'll link the website down below that I'm using. Let's get started. Pink. Oh. Now this is like a hot pink. Do I have hot pink? This is hard. I have some contenders, but I don't have anything that has the majority of the color on the cover. Based off of the books that I have in my room, I don't have anything that specifically has hot pink on it, but I think this would work. Disappoint Me by Nicole Denon. I think that this makes more sense because of how much hot pink is on the cover. However, in my reading spreadsheet, I don't know if I would say that this is hot pink because it has more green, but honestly, I can't find anything else and this just makes more sense and I'm not gonna think too hard about it. And our next book is Lime Green. Oh my god. Do I have a book with lime green? Wait, this is perfect. This is on my reader on haul list for 2025. And look, we have lime green. This is perfect. I would say that that's some lime green. At least it's like a bright shade of green and I'm going to count it. Awesome. These are our first 2 books of the TBR Tackle series. I'm so happy. I feel like this series is going to work for me so much better than my series reading new releases because I'll be able to add new releases into these videos, but it just makes more sense for me to have a challenge. I'm going to start with Frankly I'm in Love. Hopefully I can find an audiobook for it because it's pretty long. I've been trying to read this for the last couple years and I never got finished because it's very chunky. I believe it's like over 400 pages. So if I can get the audiobook, that would be fantastic. And I'm excited to finally read it and hopefully finish it and to see if I will keep it or unhaul it. Hi, I just got to 50% in Frankly in Love, so I figured I would update you since I haven't yet. A lot is going on so far. So the gist of this book is we're following Frank Lee. He's in high school. I believe he's in his senior year because they just took their SATs and are talking about college. So he's either a junior or senior in high school. He comes from a Korean family who are strict about who he and his sister dates. So much so that his sister, who is married to a black man, has been disowned from the family. This makes things difficult for Frank because he is currently crushing on a girl named Britt who is white. He can't tell his parents this, of course, because it will cause a lot of trouble. This book heavily talks about racism as Frank's parents are very racist, especially towards black people, which is sort of why his sister Hannah is disowned from the family and does not come around. So currently Frank is realizing that he needs to speak up and he needs to do something about his parents' behavior and push back on a lot of their comments. But at the same time, he's a kid in high school and he likes this girl and he wants to keep dating her. One of his friends, Joy, who is a family friend, she's in the same situation where she is with a boy who is not Korean and she wants to date him and is secretly dating him just like Frank. And she obviously can't tell her parents because they will disapprove. One night they decide to fake date each other to make things easier in their lives. I know that doesn't sound like it's easy because it's not, and it is going to create some conflict. It is currently in the book, but their thought process is if they show that they're both dating someone Korean, that their parents will let them do whatever, which is kind of happening. Specifically, if they said they were gonna go hang out at one of their significant other's houses, specifically Frank is dating Britt. So if Frank says he's going to Britt's house, his parents are not going to be as receptive and maybe he won't be able to go, or they're going to have stricter rules. But when he announces he's dating Joy, all of those go out the window. He's allowed to go hang out with her anytime, and his parents are very happy. Now, there's a conflict that just happened, like a bomb drop, and Frank is realizing that he needs to be more conscious about his family members and push back on their racist comments, and he realizes they're not going to be here forever. I'm interested to see how this goes because I feel like it's going to go up in flames because Britt doesn't know that the fake dating situation is going on, and that is the biggest problem here. Britt is going to find out eventually, and she's going to be upset. Frank just keeps explaining how she will never understand. I'm kind of conflicted on what I think about this book so far. I'm liking the writing and the characters. I think it's really funny, but it is super angsty. I think it's important to acknowledge that this is great to have because not many kids get to see themselves in a fake dating situation, especially when it is as specific as this. I'm sure there's a lot of teens that could relate to having strict parents, and this would be something they would enjoy and like to see themselves in. So I don't want to discredit the book because I think it's important for any marginalized group to see themselves in any trope, especially fake dating. And you know, I love fake dating. So I'm curious to see how the rest of the book goes if the fake dating starts to become a romance, because it seems like right now Frank is developing some feelings for Joy. So I wonder what the commentary and discussion is going to be about that, because he probably didn't expect to fall for a Korean girl because that's the whole point of the book, was him wanting to be with somebody else. But there's so much to unpack here. I don't even think I can do this book justice for the conversations because I'm a white guy, so I can't really talk too much about it. So I'll try and find some reviews. Of course, this book came out in 2019, so just know that, but I still think it could be a good book to read today because of the discussions about racism in the Asian community, especially with older Asian parents. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. If his sister is going to come home, and maybe we'll have some reconstructing of that relationship and how his parents are going to develop, and also just Frank developing as a character because the boy is messy, but it's fine. That's exactly what a teenager was like. And again, that's why I'm like, this is important for representation purposes. It also feels like the author is pulling from his own experiences, because if you didn't know, this is Nicola Yoon's husband. Nicola Yoon is black, and of course David Yoon is Asian. And so I wonder if he is pulling from some experiences of being in an interracial relationship. And so I like what the book is talking about and exploring. Like I said, it's pretty funny. I just like how Frank is constantly messing up, and the fact that it's called Frankly in Love because he's Frank Lee. I think that's really funny. Again, I think that this is a good book to have for teens to see themselves represented in a fake dating romance. I'm not really sure if it's my favorite thing, but I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to finishing it. So speaking of that, I will see you at the end. Hi, I just finished up Frankly in Love. Let's chat. I'm so glad that I finally got around to reading this because I really enjoyed it. The conversations about family and realizing that you don't have a lot of time with your parents is really important for a teenager to know about. And we see through Frank he's realizing that he doesn't really know much about his family or his dad, and a lot of the things that he thought about them doesn't align with his thought process anymore. And he's just realizing that his parents are human and they immigrated from Korea to the United States. Specifically, this is set in California. I do need to read the author's note though, because I had the audiobook, they didn't read it. But I did read a review that I'll link down below that shared David did pull from his own experiences of being a Korean man, and specifically from when he was in high school. So I am going to read the author's note after I finish up this clip. But yes, I did enjoy this and I'm going to keep it. I really thought I was going to have to unhaul this, but I don't. I really enjoyed the talk and discussion about family, and it was messy. I love a messy book. It is pretty heavy at times because it does talk about racism. There's a lot of racist comments, some fat phobia, as well as a death of a parent, and talk about cancer. So trigger warning for that if you want to pick it up today in 2025. I was pleasantly surprised by this and I enjoyed it. I won't say it was my favorite thing, but I appreciate what it did, and I would recommend it to teenagers today because, like I've already said, I think it's important for Korean teens or any Asian teen to have this type of representation with fake dating. However, I will say the fake dating is there, but I don't know if I would truly classify this as fake dating. Fake dating exists, but the relationship kind of fizzles out, and it really talks about friendship and family, especially because his sister Hannah is estranged. You see a lot of that dynamic where Frank realizes he doesn't really know his sister and he wants her to come to the family more. I honestly can't review this without spoiling it, so I think I'm gonna leave it there. Those are my final thoughts on the book. I enjoyed it. I like what it did. The writing was good. I liked the humor, and Frank was a fun yet messy character. And now it's time for me to finally read Disappoint Me by Nicola Denon. I was doing some research about the book and the author, especially because I wanted to know how to pronounce her name correctly, and I hope that I am. I watched an interview she did for her book Bellies. I did not know she was the author of that book, but now I know. And she was talking with Juno Dawson, so I'll link that down below. She's a trans woman from the UK, and coincidentally, it is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander month, and both authors are Asian, so that's pretty cool. But this is about a trans poet. Max is 30, a published poet and a grossly overpaid legal counsel for a tech company. With a lifetime of dysphoria and fuckboys rattling around her head, Max is plagued with a deep dissatisfaction during what should be the best years of her life. After taking a spill down the stairs at a New Year's Eve party, she decides to make some changes. First things first, a stab at good old-fashioned heteronormativity. It's blurbed a captivating look at the complex entanglements of youth and the relationships, familial and romantic, that shape our lives. This sounds fantastic. The publication date is actually today, the 27th, when I'm filming this, and I'm very excited to read this, so I am going to get into it, and of course, I will come back to you when I have something to update on. Hi, I haven't even cracked 100 pages in this book, and I'm bored. I read literary fiction pretty often, and I have found some of my favorite books in that genre. This book feels like it's just taking forever. However, I am enjoying the conversations about being trans, and specifically being a trans woman who is half Chinese, and talking about that experience. Our main character, Max, she's messy, and she is just going through the motions of being in her 30s and realizing that she didn't have a future set for herself, and I can relate to that a lot. Especially in the Asian culture, women are taught to produce, and men as well are expected to have families, and both Max and her now current partner Vincent are talking about this as they start to date each other. Max has dated fuckboys, so she is dealing with just realizing that she's dating a man who's actually treating her right. However, he will obviously never understand the trans experience since he is a cis man. And I like that he's just trying and he wants to learn. I really like the scene where they have their first date because it felt like their chemistry flowed. Whenever I read trans books, I'm pretty hesitant and on edge at points because I'm just like, when is the bad thing going to happen? When is this character possibly going to experience some sort of transphobia? There is like underlying transphobia, but I wouldn't say it's heavy. There's a lot of internalized transphobia here, but for the most part, there's nothing egregious or anything that I've been triggered by personally. However, I am only like 90 pages in. I think what I'm gonna do here is see how I feel at 50%, but I'm not going to force myself to finish it if I'm not jiving with it. It's just gonna be a bummer if I don't like it because I appreciate the conversations. I'm enjoying that, but it's not making me want to pick it back up. That's my problem with literary fiction sometimes, is it's too slow. And me as a reader, I need to be engrossed. I need to have a reason to pick it back up. So those are some of my thoughts right now. Usually I wouldn't update you this early, but I have a lot of feelings and I hope that they change. Hello, it's Saturday and I just hit 50% in Disappoint Me and I'm enjoying it a lot more. I will say, I don't know if it's a fast-paced book, but it feels like I'm getting over the hump. And I read a review, and I'll put it up here and link it down below, that said the 30 to 40% mark is very slow. But once you get over that, you understand more of the story, and that's exactly what's happening. So I'm really happy about that, because last time we talked, I was not sure about this. So I'm gonna sit here and finish this up. I have about 150 pages left. I don't know how long that's going to take me. It'll probably take a couple hours, but I hope that I can finish this in time to get this video up. So I'm gonna read, and I will see you in a bit.
6.5 hours later.
You're definitely seeing this video very late, but I am determined to get it out tonight, today, before June 1st. But as you can see, I finished up Disappoint Me, and wow, I'm really happy that I stuck through this, because as you can see, I tabbed it a bunch. This was an arc, so I'm not going to share any quotes, but this is such a thought-provoking and quote-worthy book. Thank you again to Katie at the Dial Press for sending me a copy. Of course, all of my thoughts are honest, and I was not paid to receive this book. I was gifted it for a honest review. The prose was so beautiful. There's so many lines that I resonated with as a trans person in their 30s. I could relate to a lot of the sentiments in this book. Basically, it is talking about being a trans woman in society where women are predominantly told that they need to have a family and have children. And especially as we have a Chinese main character, she is talking about how the Asian community and the culture prioritizes that. I have read about this topic before in several other books, especially about how the Asian community and families usually look down upon single mothers and just how motherhood is pushed. So as our main character Max is a trans woman and doesn't have a womb. She is so conflicted by this. And I honestly could relate to so much because she talks about how weird it is to go to weddings and have people just talk about having children. Specifically, she's at her friend's wedding and they're like, oh, they're gonna make great children together. And Max and her friend Simone are like, that is so weird to say. I just resonated with this book so much. However, it's very heavy. I have like 3 post-its worth of trigger warnings, which I will be talking about in my wrap-up, but I could just tell them for you right now. We have racism, transphobia, there's a hate crime, microaggressions, medical content, there's mention of a brain tumor, mention of drugs, alcohol, and an alcoholic father. Injury, there's the T slur on the page as well as the F slur. Vomiting, transphobic language and comments, a character experienced migraines, and there's talk about eating disorders, cheating, gender dysphoria, sexual content, abortion, outing, and hate crime. There's so much in here. But if you like literary fiction and you want to read from the perspective of a trans woman, I highly recommend this. It is pitched as a love story between 2 flawed characters, Vincent and Max. Vincent has done some shitty things in his life, but now that it's 10 years later, he is trying to rectify that, and at the end, he mentions how he is trying to make himself a better person. At the beginning of the book, Max is coming off of a relationship with a man named Arthur, who also treated her poorly. And overall, this is just about 2 flawed and complex characters and things happening in their lives. It is ambiguous at the end, so I kind of wish that I had a little bit more of a result and conclusion to the story, since there's a lot of things that happen, but I understand that that is what literary fiction does, and it's pretty much open to your own interpretation. However, the last chapter does sort of tell you what happened, but overall, I appreciate this book and what it did. I won't say it was my favorite thing, but I am glad that I read it. I really appreciate what it did. I would read anything that Nicole Dinan writes because I think her writing is fantastic, as well as her character work and storytelling. Literary fiction is usually a hit or miss for me, so this is not for everybody. Sorry if my thoughts were all over the place, but I'm really trying not to spoil you. If you like the author, and I think if you're a trans person in your 30s, you will really resonate with this, especially if you've read this author before and you like literary fiction. I highly recommend this. I think it was very well done, and I am going to be thinking about this book for a while. And that concludes the first episode of TBR Tackle. Let's do a little reading wrap up. I read Frankly in Love, which I am keeping, and I really enjoyed. It has similar themes to Disappoint Me, which I also enjoyed. I think I did pretty well for the first episode, and can't believe that I picked 2 books that have similar themes, and I didn't even know. So that is all for this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment so more people can see this video. If you don't feel like leaving a lengthy comment, you can just leave a book emoji. I will be filming the 2nd episode of this literally tomorrow. I'm really excited about this series, and I hope that you are excited as well. Thank you to my top patrons for their support this month. If you would like to join the Paperback Pals for exclusive content every month, the link is down below. If you would like to watch more, I will link a video here and you can subscribe there. I will see you next month for a ton of content for Pride. Bye.